Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with old-fashioned split-top hot dog buns. That's right. You know how your grandparents are always saying how everything was better back in their day? This is one of the things they're talking about. So I thought I would post this and show you the almost lost art of the split-top roll. And in addition to tasting better, this style of bun has some huge technological advantages, and you're about to see why. So step one, we're going to need some hot dog bun dough. And the recipe we're going to use is very similar to our hamburger bun dough. In fact, it's so similar, it's the exact recipe. So you're going to see links to follow back to that video to check this out in detail. But real briefly, let me show you what goes into this. It's a pretty standard roll or bun dough. We got your dry active yeast with a little bit of flour and some warm water. And we'll mix that up and let that sit for about 10 or 15 minutes before adding the rest of the ingredients, which includes 1 egg, some melted butter, some sugar, and some salt, and of course flour. And then we're just going to knead that with our dough hook until a nice, soft, supple, slightly sticky dough forms. And again, this is literally footage from our hamburger bun dough recipe, so go check that out to get the nice, slow, detailed version. And when that nice, soft, supple dough ball forms, we're going to go ahead and put that in a lightly oiled bowl, cover it, and let that rise for 2 hours, or until doubled. And as you know, I like to let mine rise in a turned-off oven. And a couple hours later, my dough looked like this. And at that point, we'll go ahead and deflate this. We'll transfer that onto a well-floured surface. We'll, of course, also flour our hands well. And what we want to do is press that down. Like I said, we want to deflate that totally, press all that air out. And at the same time, I'm kind of making a rectangular shape. And that's only to make it a little easier to portion these up. So I like to kind of square it off a little bit. We'll dust the top with flour. I'll cut that in half. And then each of those halves I'll cut in 4. And for me, that's an easy way to get fairly even-sized pieces of dough. And then once our dough's been cut up in 8 pieces, we're going to go ahead and form these. And all that means is take one of these pieces of dough and kind of tilt it up on the skinny end so that cut side's kind of facing up. See that? And I'm just going to go ahead and press it down like that and just give it a quick shaping, remotely resembling a hot dog bun, I guess. We're basically just trying to even out that dough and end up with something about 5 or 6 inches long. And by the way, we're going to slice these tops again. So don't worry if one of the end pieces doesn't have a seam or you can't find the seam. We're going to make a seam. And then once we've gone through and given those a preliminary shaping, we will transfer those onto a Silpat line baking sheet. Again, if we can, with the seam side up. And then very important, you want to space these about 1/4 inch apart. And you'll see why very shortly. It's one of the keys to this technique. So we're going to line those up. And I should mention, especially if your kitchen's warm, these are going to start rising again pretty quickly. So don't be surprised if you turn around and they're already touching each other. And then once we have those nicely lined up on the pan and spaced properly, we will take a sharp knife and we will make a nice incision down the center about 1/8 of an inch deep. All right, right through the center of that existing seam. This first one was an end piece, so it didn't really have a seam. But it doesn't matter, we'll slice through anyway. And then we'll continue slashing right down the center, just like that, not too deep. And then before we let these rise again before baking, we're going to go ahead and paint them with melted butter. All right, this is another key step. After these rise together and bake together, we have to be able to separate them. So make sure you're not only getting that butter all over the tops and sides, but make sure you're brushing it between the buns. And once those buns have been buttered beautifully, we're going to go ahead and let those rise for about 45 minutes. Again, I like to do mine inside a turned-off oven, and you don't need to cover them. And we're going to let those rise for about 45 minutes or until they look like this. So I'm not sure if that's quite doubled in size, probably more like 1.5 times. But when they look like this, you are ready to preheat your oven and bake. So let's go ahead and heat our oven to 375. And as we wait for that to come up to temperature, you can see why that spacing was so important on these rolls. You see they've risen and grown together. And this way when they bake, we're going to be able to pull those apart and they're going to have relatively straight sides. And I should add at this point, this needs nothing else on top. No poppy seeds, no sesame seeds, no egg wash. That butter we brushed on is all we need. But anyway, we're going to wait for our oven to come up to temperature. And then we're going to go ahead and pop these in the center of our 375-degree oven for about 20 to 25 minutes, or until beautifully golden brown and looking something remarkably similar to this. And as much as I'd love to stand around admiring these, we have one very important step to do. I want you to brush them thoroughly with melted butter again. Yes, again. And not only does extra butter have a proven track record for tasting good, this is also going to give that little bit of crust that formed on the dough a beautiful, soft, supple texture, which is really what you want for a hot dog bun. So we're going to brush on our butter, and that's pretty much it. As soon as these cool down completely, you can pull them apart and start sticking hot dogs in them. Now, of course, I'm not going to wait. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to pull one apart here. And because we painted that with butter, it pulls apart just that easy. And if you have not tried our hamburger bun recipe and had this dough yet, you are in for a treat. Super light and airy, yet holds up perfectly to even the most intimidating hot dogs and burgers. But anyway, let these cool down completely before you tear them apart. And then let me show you why these are a magical experience. And it all has to do with those flat sides that are formed when you pull these rolls apart. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our serrated knife and cut straight down the top, 2/3 of the way down. All right, halfway is not enough, 3/4 is too much. And after our rolls are cut, we're going to toast the sides in a little bit of butter. And it's this step right here that truly turns this into an otherworldly experience. So we're going to toast those cut edges in a little bit of butter on medium heat, just a minute or two per side. I do also like to toast the bottom a little. And once those sides are toasted, it's time to spread open that bun and insert wiener into what's now a perfectly steamy warm center. And that right there, my friends, is a masterpiece in American hot dog technology. I mean, come on, crispy, buttery roll with that soft, airy center. That's just the perfect cradle for your hot dog, baby. And really, the only thing missing here is a little bit of mustard. Some good old-fashioned yellow mustard right from the squeeze bottle. And by the way, this is the preferred Chef John way to eat hot dogs, mustard only. But you do your thing. I don't judge. I even love you freaks of nature that put on ketchup. It's okay. It's not your fault. I blame your parents. But anyway, that's it. Old-fashioned, pull-apart, split-top hot dog buns. It literally does not get any better than that. It's just a truly amazing technique. And just think of all the years you've been eating a hot dog in a side-split bun like a savage. This is just so much better. So anyway, because of all those things I just said, I really, really hope you give these a try. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info, as usual. And as always, enjoy.